traction is what it's all about. Investors most of the time will forgive inefficiencies and the fact that maybe you're not making profit, but you have to establish that interest. And so a lot of people stumble over that, and it's really important to keep that focus and establish those metrics and chase those, because if not, then you'll find that you fail.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly. We are at Venture Cafe Miami tonight. So if you don't know about Venture Cafe, you need to know about Venture Cafe. It is also the largest gathering of innovators anywhere in the world. So Thursday night, all around the world, there are people meeting at a Venture Cafe. Tonight, I'm very excited because we have Allan Daisley with us. Allan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Allan is the managing director of Startupbootcamp Scale Digital Health. And that is a program that helps high growth potential startups engage with and bring impactful technologies to healthcare stakeholders. And in this role, you recruit, invest in, develop those startups through what would be called the commercialization process. I'd love to learn a little bit about that, but really kind of just steering them toward meaningful engagements with healthcare corporations and stakeholders. And you're the perfect person for this position because you had a healthcare startup, 0 to 510, which was a medical device accelerator, which you co-founded.
Right, yeah. I co-founded that back in the end of 2011. We had our first program in 2012, and it was really all about trying to bring medical device technologies to the marketplace. We partnered with an investor in Memphis called Innova and another one called MB Ventures, and basically did this venture where for them it was us helping them find better deal flow and then taking them through the process of maturing the technologies, maturing the entrepreneurs, and really making them much more ready to take their products to market.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about Startup Bootcamp.
So Startup Bootcamp is a global entrepreneur support organization. We have programs in several countries all over the globe. We have about 25 programs at this point, with a couple more coming online. And what we do is we take entrepreneurs through this commercialization process, helping them vet technologies, helping them make connections, get investment, so they can take their products to market. We have several different offerings, everything from things like meetings and hackathons to get ideas out to the traditional accelerator program, so 3 months of intensive mentorship and acceleration and a little seed investment, to scale programs, which is like what we're doing here, that focus on growing them through this sort of rapid customer adoption phase. And then we do innovation programs with corporations, where we help the corporations figure out how to bring on new technologies, how to work with startups and things like that. Yeah.
So talk to me about this commercialization process. Like you're in like this scaling phase, right? So the people probably already have a good idea and they're kind of on their way, and so you're helping them market it, is that, or make it viable for commercial?
Yeah, it's a number of things. What we find is that in the initial sort of acceleration phase, there's the goal is sort of to find this magic thing we call product market fit. Most startups fail because they make stuff that nobody wants. That's why most of them fail. So a lot of the good programs will make sure you don't make something nobody wants, or if you're on the road to doing that, then we pivot you while you still have some money and some time. So once you get that product bit taken care of, the next phase, in which we're in, is a whole different set of skills, which is how do you grow a company? How do you grow a business, and how do you take it to the marketplace? How do you compete against competitors? How do you get a sales process that lets you bring on and rapidly adopt customers? And then how do you handle the load that you've just given yourself? So growing the team, growing your processes, finding new customers, managing cash so you don't run out, finding that next investment. How do you get that Series A? So that's where we focus in this program.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting focus because I think there's so many entrepreneurs that really love the startup phase, and then once you get to the scale business phase, it's not as fun. But how do you help people? Like, what are the first couple steps going from that? I'm starting up. Here's an exciting idea. To okay, this is hard. I have to scale it up.
Yeah, so it's hugely challenging, and some of the major sort of pitfall areas that we find are like you alluded to. So you've got a founder who's really good at tinkering and making stuff work, and doesn't mind sort of going out and getting the feedback and creating this beautiful product. But then the challenge becomes, okay, how do you go make these sales calls when now money's on the line, the survival of your company's on the line as a whole. It's work now. It's not fun anymore. So there's that, and then there's a sort of operational mindset that needs to now kick in, where you're not just trying to tinker and figure out how things work, and you're working with your best buddies 12 hours a day, and it's cool. Now it's we have to go make that sale, and there's a certain amount of rejection that comes with that. How do you handle that? Now we have to manage money in a certain way, and then often relationships change when you get from, okay, now we're just sort of spending investors' money to now we're bringing in money, and if you're successful, then your differences start to come out. Well, we should do it this way, we should do it that way, or I deserve this, and so there are internal things with the founders, as well as just do we have the right people in place? When you were trying to build a product, you needed the engineers and the tinkerers, and now you need to listen to the marketing guy or listen to the sales guy, because they can tell you what's good and what's bad in the market, and depending on how you take feedback, you may not want to hear that the baby's ugly, and so you have to be able to have a whole different set of skills to be able to take that forward, and a different attitude, frankly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you find at this phase, is this kind of like where things fall apart for some people? Is it kind of like a defining time where if you can push through it, you're successful, but what happens at that phase?
Oh man, I wish there was a magic formula for success, but it is definitely a critical time. Most businesses most startups will fail within 5 years, and typically, within 3. So it's really important that as you sort of find that product market fit, that you then relentlessly pursue this magic traction. So traction is what it's all about, and investors most of the time they'll forgive inefficiencies and the fact that maybe you're not making profit. But if you're not making the revenue, if you're not bringing in, whatever your metric is, so it could be customer visits, it could be just pure revenue, it could be, you need, 1 million hits to your website to determine viability. But you have to establish that interest. So getting to those metrics, you now have to be more disciplined, and it's a different mindset from the tinkering mindset. And so a lot of people stumble over that, and it's really important to keep that focus and establish those metrics and chase those, because if not, then you'll find that you fail.
So tell me about this whole space, the healthcare space, just in general. Is it a crowded space in terms of startups and accelerators, or is it is there a higher bar, meaning there's less competition?
Right. Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty crowded space. So healthcare has been pretty interesting. I actually started my career out in just in pure technology. I was a software developer, IT consultant, project manager, and and then as I switched over to focus more on healthcare, it was one of these things where what drives healthcare is, so first of all, we have a system that's it's a challenge, and that's putting it nicely. There are a lot of things that in healthcare that are a little bit broken, and there are a lot of changes. So with the Affordable Care Act, there came a lot of changes, and usually with change comes opportunity. So a lot of people came into the market to try and solve some of the issues. So how do we make insurance work better? With the ACA came provisions for young people staying on insurance longer. It came provisions for sort of performance-based incentives. And so what we found is that there's this shift even now going from what they call fee for value, which is every time you touch somebody, you get paid. Fee for service, which is every time you touch somebody, you get paid, to fee for value, which is more performance-based. And what that means is that all the metrics have changed. And with that, physicians, hospitals found that they needed more help to track their metrics, to look at things in a different way. So what do? You sort of look for technology that helps you. What that has meant practically over the years is that if you look on the App Store, there's like 1 million healthcare apps out there. So now the problem is not that nothing's there, but you don't know how to choose from what's out there. So long answer to your question, but yeah, it is a very crowded space right now, especially in the digital health area. So the big challenge now is to pick through that and figure out where the value is in the apps that are there.
As like an end user, or as an accelerator, or as a scale. Like, are you going out and seeking out like your participants, or are they coming to you? How's that work?
So it's a little bit of both, but what we found is that we get much better results when we go looking. As you open the doors, everything comes. And so we typically get hundreds of applications for our programs. But the way we work is we work with stakeholders like providers, so hospitals, physician practices, and so on. Payers, so insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, and we've created a network of these. And what we do is we work with them to figure out, what is it that keeps you up at night? What solutions are you looking for? Then, armed with that knowledge, we can go to the startup world and say, okay, all right, we're looking for these 5 things. And so we'll typically hit the road and, go to conferences, go to demo days for other accelerators, we've traveled South America, Europe, Israel. So we take a global look, and we look for the best stuff that we think our stakeholders are looking for. And that's how we make our decisions. So we're typically chasing them and trying to convince them to come join us.
Wow.
So you talked about a while back kind of this fee for value as the direction things are going, if I'm understanding you right.
Yes.
So along those lines, what are the areas in healthcare that seem to be kind of ripe for the most disruption? Yeah. If I'm a startup, what's ripe for disruption in that area?
Oh man, a lot. So if you ask a hospital CEO sort of what's keeping them up at night, they'll tell you, so one of the big things is population health. So how do we, the population of people that we serve, how do we, make sure that they get the best service? How do we keep them out of the hospital? And how do we efficiently provide for them while keeping our margins? Margins have been really kind of pushed now that the metrics have changed. There's things like how you manage people with mental health problems. It's something that we've shied away a lot from in the past, but now it's costing us a lot because we've ignored it. Addiction, so the opioid problem. So we have we've seen a lot of applications where you're looking for more efficient ways to communicate. Again, part of population health, but this idea of patient engagement. There's a big premium on that now because what we found is the more that you can communicate efficiently with your patients, the less they're going to have to show up and cost you money to fix maybe small problems that you could have done. So there's the most sophisticated stuff, the telemedicine, where you can actually now have a through the camera visit with your physician. to something as simple as getting a text message to remind you, look, you're getting that operation tomorrow. Don't eat after midnight. Because what's happening is there's a high rate of cancellations of surgery. It's unbelievable, and it's really expensive because you've reserved an ER, you've got a really expensive physician, and then the bozo who was supposed to be on the table, had a 2:00 hamburger, and now you can't cut him open. So there's several areas, and that's one of the things that's it's exciting in terms of the possibilities, but it also shows that there's a lot that's broken and really kind of needs fixing. Those are some of the areas. One of the sort of big ones that we're just in the past couple of years becoming really more aware of is this whole movement. It's called the social determinants of health. So we typically look at people and we only touch them when they're sick. We don't, everybody's supposed to come in and do a yearly physical, but you don't necessarily do that. Most people will skip it if they have the choice. But there are a lot of things, and especially like we look around Miami and there's such a disparity of different sorts of people and incomes and ages and social determinants are really the non-medical things that affect your health and well-being. So things like, do you have transportation to get to that appointment? Do you have 2 jobs and there's no way in heck that you're going to be able to go make this appointment because you're going to lose your job? Are you living in a safe place? Do you even have a home? The rate of illness and of homeless people is astronomical because you're in the elements all the time. Is it safe at home, or are you living with somebody who's violent and gets drunk every night? Even things like social inclusion. Are you lonely and depressed? And all of these things build up to make really sick people, both physically and mentally. And so now there's a big movement to really look at the root of some of these things and not just treat people when they're sick, but help them to live healthy lives, have access to good food, so that we don't have the expensive hit to the healthcare system that we currently are having.
So I'm sure that you've seen a lot, and probably a lot of really amazing things. Tell me about like what one thing that like has really just got you wired, excited, that you're just like, once this hits, or if we can get this out here in the right people's hands, the right stakeholders, like it's just going to change the world. Tell me about something like that.
Oh man, I see so many cool things. We've got lots of technologies that come through. Everything from so there's one company that's building an application that is it's going to be a repository for all of your healthcare data. So basically, in your phone, you can have your electronic health record. Currently there's this big debate about who owns the data. Is it your hospital, or should you be the owner of it? When it comes to a point that this data is going to be monetized, do I have any say in it? And so what this application does, it's a company called Be Well, and they were in our cohort last year. And basically, it's you set this thing up, it pulls in your data. All you have to do is give it permission. You can give it a signature. It'll pull in your insurance information, and now it becomes your healthcare companion. And as you need things to happen, or as things happen in your life, it will be able to tell you that, so you're with United Healthcare, we've seen from your Fitbit activity and your last weight on the scale that you're getting a little pudgy around the middle. Do you know that United will reimburse your gym membership, and that there are these classes, going on that fit your schedule. So it can inform you of things personalized, not general, but knowing, what's reimbursed, what you have a right to or access to. And then beyond that, your prescriptions, so interface with, Walgreens and the drugstores, and be able to, basically have all of your information there, and you're at the tip of your fingers.
Wow.
You can basically control your life and your data. And I think that's where that's where the model is going. You'll see more people are going to be awake and alert about the data and who has it and who cares and wanting to be more informed. And this is something that's really going to kick that off.
Wow.
It's really exciting.
I've always thought that if you just knew all of like the ins and outs of your insurance, like you could probably save a lot of money, right? Yeah. But if there's an app that can say, do this, like fill in this paper and mail it in and get $50. Yeah, I mean,
it would really help. This is the problem, though. I mean, everything. I mean, I know healthcare pretty well, but I don't know the ins and outs of my insurance. And surely, if you leave the hospital, the bill that they give you, I don't know two people on the face of the earth who could explain that whole thing to you. So anything that can bring more simplicity to this complex healthcare environment is it's all right by me.
So I'm curious. You've talked about, obviously you were in the software realm is where you started. So I'm curious, what was it that made you switch to the medical area, right. And then what is it that brought you to Miami?
Yeah, so interesting. I had a chance to work with a little bit in the healthcare environment coming up through my corporate career, and but beyond that, so my father is a physician, my mother is a nurse, my big sister is a physician, and then there was me. I think it just took me a while to get back to it. But it's always been a passion of mine to help people, to see them get the best care possible, and just kind of watching the way that my family worked. So it's always been an interest, and I think at the point where I decided to. So I did a startup, and then that didn't quite work out. But then I had this opportunity to work with entrepreneurs and kind of help them. They were entrepreneurs from all walks of life. But so I ran a business incubator for a couple of years, and then I found that I liked doing that. After that, I was looking for the next thing, and that's when I joined up with the guys from Memphis, and we decided that let's do something that this city is good at. In Memphis, most people don't know this, but Memphis is a huge medical device town. There's several companies there, Smith & Nephew, Medtronic, Wright Medical, Microport, and then a bunch of other sort of second-tier manufacturers as well. And so it was really kind of my passion plus the interest of these investors who were looking at medical devices, and the fact that if we could do something, we wanted to do something that we could be world class at. We didn't have the sort of core critical mass of developers like you have in Silicon Valley and some of the other places around the country. And so we said, what could we be good at? And Memphis was really good at devices and also logistics, which is another thing we explored as well. But that's kind of where I really got deep into this. And so I put that program together, and there were a lot of learnings that came from that. After doing that for about 5 years, I was looking around at healthcare more broadly. I wanted to look at beyond just devices. I did the same exercise that I was telling you about, talking to some hospital leaders, talking to some CEOs, talking to some insurers, and just figuring out what is it that keeps you up at night. And the kind of problems that they were describing to me were more sort of systemic things. We talked about the population health. We talked about emergency people showing up in the emergency rooms. We talked about the ability to make people do the right thing. So we treat you well. We give you a prescription, we send you home, but you don't take your medicine, and so you come back, you're sick. And so after hearing that, about 100 different times, I started kind of, wanting to explore healthcare more broadly and take a more holistic view of things, and got this opportunity to jump to the digital side, and it happened to be here in Miami. Startupbootcamp was looking for a new managing director. It just seemed like a perfect fit for what I was doing and where I wanted to go. So about a little over a year ago, I came here to Miami. Yeah, and it does not suck. Yeah, no, Miami is, it's great, especially, at this time of the year when it starts to get chilly and, places like St. Louis, it's a great place to be. It's a wonderful environment to do what we're doing. Yeah.
What are you seeing here that's kind of unique to the innovation scene here?
Yeah, Miami is really interesting. There's a lot going on. It is, there are lots of different pockets of activity. What I found is that, if you compare it to some of the other cities that are really, they have a really good critical mass of, research and development, entrepreneurs coming up with these groundbreaking ideas. Miami's a little bit less so. We don't have the Stanfords and Harvards, but only certain places do. However, what I found, especially in the healthcare area, is that it's a great place to be if you can bring good technologies here. There's really, really good customer uptake. We have probably the most amazing environment for testing and adopting medical technologies, healthcare products. Miami is incredibly diverse. From a population perspective, there's the older folks who come to retire, the younger folks who come to party, and everything in between. You have racial diversity. There's a huge Hispanic population. And interestingly, most other places you go and, Hispanic is either, there's Mexican here or there's Cuban here. Here it's Cuban, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Colombia, and there's a huge mix of folks here, Black, Caribbean, Haitian, Black American, white population, that's big Jewish population, Russian, sort of classic European Americans as well. And so the rich and the poor, we have, just out there you see the high rises where folks with money live, and around the corner from here, Miami Beach to here, the average life expectancy here in Overtown is about 14 years less than it is on the beach. It's crazy.
Wow.
A couple miles, right? So, and then we have a lot of Medicaid, Medicare recipients, so the old, the poor, and then the dual eligibles, the old and poor. And so if you think about wanting to test something, if you're going to break it, it'll break here. If it works here, then there's a good chance you can take it anywhere in the country. And so that's really exciting about Miami in terms of, from a healthcare perspective. In general, in terms of innovation, with GIC and Venture Cafe, we've got a great meeting every week. We've got a few other accelerators and scale programs here. We've got the Knight Foundation that's been just so instrumental in funding a lot of these, and then just really good people. You look at all the co-working spaces around, and Miami is just jumping with energy. And I think the next phase is really to sort of put that all together, focus it, and do some of the stuff that we're really good at. And I'm a big fan of industry-specific sort of focus areas. We have code schools that have popped up. There are a couple of really good ones now. And they're looking squarely at this challenge that we've had in terms of, just the critical mass of folks who could actually help you. So you have an idea, you want to start it, you need a developer. 5 years ago, that was tough. Now it's a whole different ball game. Wow. So those are the kind of cool things that we see happening. But now what I want to see is, we've picked health. There's some other areas that we're good at. There's, service and hospitality, travel, tourism, logistics. We've got this huge port here. We've got I think Miami's the number 1 cruise port in the country. Fort Lauderdale, 25 miles up the street, it's number 3. So we've got Disney that's just up the road. So in my mind, the next really big thing is bringing all these things together and making a concerted effort to elevate it in the areas that we're strong, that we have a good raw material in. and then that's going to take us to the next level.
Well, Allan, this has been a great conversation. Tell me, how can people who have healthcare startups get in touch with Startup Bootcamp Scale Digital Health? And then how can people get in touch with you on social media?
Yeah, so if you have a great idea that you think is ready for prime time, we're at startupbootcamp.org. And, you can find us there. Me personally, I'm Allan, Allan, at startupbootcamp.org. And on social, Twitter is at Daisley. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just Allan Daisley will bring me up. I'm probably one of the few there. And would love to be in touch.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Allan, thank you. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in Miami, visit us on Thursday nights. Details are at venturecafemiami.org. And be sure to connect with us on social at We Are Slam and at Venture Cafe MIA. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to